We've all seen the news, humanity is going back to the moon. But the Artemis program isn't some sort of Apollo rerun, it's the first step to build a permanent, sustained presence on the lunar surface. For NASA, for the US space program, and for a new generation of explorers, the moon is just a pit stop. Because the true horizon, the ultimate goal, is the red planet. The journey from a moon base to a permanent Mars colony is the most ambitious project ever conceived. Today on Science Mania, we're breaking down the official US roadmap, after Artemis, the US plan for permanent Mars colonies. The Artemis Foundation, Moon to Mars. The moon is more than just a place to plant a flag. It's what NASA calls the proving ground, meaning everything we learn and build on the moon will directly prepare us for the 150 to 300 million mile trip to Mars. Artemis will test, in particular, three key technologies: the Orion capsule, the SLS rocket, and the Lunar Gateway, a space station that will be orbiting the moon. The Gateway will effectively represent the first deep space habitat where astronauts practice long-duration isolation and operations that simulate their journey transport. ISRU, the key to survival. Perhaps most critically, the moon teaches us In-Situ Resource Utilization, or ISRU for short. That's just a fancy term for living off the land. The plan is to harvest water ice at the lunar South Pole, then to use solar power to break it down into breathable oxygen and, more importantly, rocket fuel. If we can produce fuel on the moon, we don't have to launch all of it from Earth. And that same technology will be absolutely crucial on Mars. Artemis is the multi-year dress rehearsal before the main event. The first leap: robotics and transport. Once the lunar infrastructure is robust, today's target for the first crewed mission to Mars is the mid to late 2030s. Before the astronauts can go, a fleet of robotic precursors must first be dispatched. Uncrewed cargo missions, large, heavy-lift rockets, from commercial partners such as SpaceX's Starship, would take off years in advance. Without people on board, they would carry absolutely everything for their survival: unpressurized rovers, power systems like the experimental fission surface power unit, a small nuclear reactor, and the initial habitat modules. Propellant depots. Those initial missions will also incorporate the essential ISRU systems to land and immediately begin churning out propellant from carbon dioxide in the Martian atmosphere or any water ice found. By the time the crew arrives, the fuel for the return journey or the next leg of their mission must already be waiting. The transit vehicle. For the 6 to 9 month journey itself, a large crewed transit vehicle is needed, a true deep space habitat. It has to have active radiation shielding, artificial gravity concepts, and closed-loop life support able to recycle air and water for years. It's a spaceship as large as a small research station. Establishing the Outpost, first human landing. Building, not exploration, is the true purpose of the first Mars crew. Their job is not to search for little green men, but to guarantee the long-term survival of the crews which will follow them. Surface habitat. The first habitat would be small, possibly created with inflatable or modular metal construction, buried under Martian soil or regolith, to achieve some natural radiation and micrometeorite protection. Shelter in place. Some of the most compelling proposals, like those from NASA's early concepts, involve using large surface landers like a modified Starship not just as transport, but as an initial semi-permanent habitat. Think of it as a fortified, landed skyscraper. Science and self-sufficiency. The first crew will probably stay on the surface for about a year or longer. They will deploy long-term experiments, set up communication arrays, and, importantly, scale up food production via systems such as vertical farms or greenhouses towards self-sufficiency. This initial camp represents the pre-settlement landing. The long-term vision: permanent colony. The ultimate goal is a fully independent permanent colony, a true Martian city. This moves into the in-settlement and finally post-settlement phases. Multiple crew rotations. Once the initial base is stable, crews will start rotating every few years with new specialists, new tools, and new supplies. Each time, however, the dependence on Martian resources is greater. Building with Mars. Future expansions will be based on 3D printing of structures directly from regolith,
making use of lava tubes for naturally shielded, large underground habitats, and increasing power beyond the initial nuclear unit by adding huge solar arrays and possibly geothermal energy. The Mars to Stay concept, some experts and private firms, such as those who support the long-term presence, go so far as to suggest a Mars to Stay mission model in which the first settlers are pioneers who would remain on Mars permanently, thus sharply reducing logistics and the cost of a return mission. This may not be official U.S. policy, but it does signal the mindset that is focused on a truly separate branch of humanity.
Timeline. Though timelines continue to shift, NASA's long-term vision is that there will be a stable, self-expanding, and permanent human presence on Mars in the 2040s. The journey to Mars is not a single launch but rather a series of incremental, often difficult steps. Artemis is perfecting the technology near the Moon. Next, robotic cargo will lay the groundwork. Finally, the first crew will land to build a beachhead. This U.S. plan is ambitious, expensive, and faces enormous challenges from radiation to resource scarcity. But it is a plan that leads to a profound moment in history, humanity becoming a multiplanetary species. What do you think? Should the first Mars crew be permanent settlers? Let me know in the comments below. For more deep dives into the future of space exploration, be sure to like and subscribe to Science Mania. And if you want to know which other countries are racing the US to Mars, click on this video right here. We'll see you in the next one.